Hey guys, Dr. Bodle here. Now, one thing that a lot of people get wrong is they think that there is one special Hashimoto's diet plan, and they are on a quest to figure out what that is because they think that it will solve a lot of their problems. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And although you can have a lot of people with the same diagnosis of Hashimoto's, they can have a lot of different nuances and intricacies to the way that their body works and the symptoms that they're experiencing, and therefore, different bodies are going to require different things. This means, as nice as it would be, there isn't one universal diet for Hashimoto's. But even so, it's a question that I get asked all the time. And that's why in today's video, we're going to talk about why people get their approach to diet wrong, why they will jump from diet to diet and why that could be a problem, and what they should be focusing on instead. So if you're interested in today's information and want to continue to learn about the best natural strategies to support your Hashimoto's and hypothyroid symptoms, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell for new videos every Thursday. So if you've been trying to research and figure out the best foods that you can eat to support your Hashimoto's, you may have come across a video like this. Who is that guy? Get him out of here. Now, those things can be a little bit confusing for us because it makes it appear as though this diet might be that universal diet we're looking for, and maybe it has certain aspects to it that makes it superior to other diets that we could be choosing. Now, the reason why there's a lot of those videos out there, and the reason why I've made those videos before, is because diets provide people with a framework. And as you probably know, when most people go in to see their doctor, especially if they've already been diagnosed with Hashimoto's and been prescribed medication, their doctor will typically tell them that there's nothing else that they can do for their condition. If that doctor's feeling really generous, they might say, you know what, try to eat a little bit healthier and maybe that'll help you out with your weight, maybe that will help you out with your energy. But if you're someone who doesn't really know a lot about nutrition, and that's most of us out there because most people don't work in a position where nutrition is their main focus. But when we say something like eat better or eat healthier, one, the doctor probably doesn't know what that means, and it doesn't give you a lot of direction. So what do we need? We need a starting point. And that's what some of these diets and diet lists can provide for us. But from there, we can be presented with a couple of problems. The first issue is that because nutrition isn't the main focus of most people's lives, it can be hard for us to understand what the goal of a particular diet is or the way that it impacts our physiology. We might know the name of a certain diet, but if it's working for us or not working for us, we don't really know what is contained within it that is driving that particular response. For example, someone with Hashimoto's and high blood sugar might decide to go on a low-carb diet to try to help manage their sugar levels. But because they're also on blood sugar lowering medication, when they go on the low-carb diet, the change in what they're eating causes their blood sugar to drop too low. This can make them feel worse, and for some people, they'll ditch the diet because they don't really understand what's going on, and they certainly don't want to cause themselves any harm. They then might jump to a different diet when in fact, they were on the right path before. They just didn't recognize it because the low-carb approach changed their blood sugar so quickly that they started to feel poorly, and just as any reasonable person would, decided to change course and hope for a better outcome. The problem is, this jumping around from diet to diet, looking for one particular answer, rarely is going to be very successful for us. Sure, it does happen where you'll have people say, I went keto and everything was perfect for me, or I went vegan and everything was perfect for me. And sure, I love you guys too, but you're frustrating the rest of us. But the reason for that, and I alluded to it before, is because our physiology is much more complex than that. And it's definitely more complex than any list of foods that anyone can create. And that's not to fault any of these lists, but there's no way you can create a diet, apply it to an unlimited amount of people, and be able to foresee all the different nuances that someone, especially someone with Hashimoto's, will need. The other problem that we run into is we start to get this idea in our heads that foods are either good or bad. And as I've said many times before, we really need to step away from that. And instead of thinking of foods as good or bad, we want to ask ourselves, which foods are the right fit for me? One of the examples that comes up a lot is eggs. And people often ask me, Dr. Brad, on one list I saw that I should avoid eggs if I have Hashimoto's, and on another list I was told that they're fine. So which is it? And the answer is, well, both lists can be right and they can also be wrong. And the reason for that is because whether eggs are good or bad, whether they fit with your system, has nothing to do with eggs and it has nothing to do with Hashimoto's. Instead, it has to do with you and your body and your physiology. Now, eggs are one of those foods that aren't a super common allergen, but it's not something that is unheard of. So, what we want to do with those foods that are in this gray area is we want to put them on our radar, be aware of when we're eating them and how our body's responding. But again, you could take 10 different people with Hashimoto's and you might have 10 different responses. Even if there was a scenario where 9 out of 10 people with Hashimoto's did react to eggs, and that isn't true, I'm just making it up for this example, then there'd still be one person who isn't reacting to eggs. If that person's eating eggs, does that make them wrong? No. As long as they're achieving their goals, they feel like their health is progressing, and eggs appear to be supportive to them. So sure, you want to be aware of certain foods, but you don't want to write off certain foods just because a particular diet feels like it's not the right option. And that's what we really want to focus on if we're trying to improve our Hashimoto's symptoms. Diets aren't an answer or a destination, they're a starting point. And what you want to do is two things. First, understand that Hashimoto's can make you more sensitive to different kinds of foods. And that's because our immune system is a little bit more reactive, and oftentimes our gut isn't functioning properly because it doesn't have the proper types of thyroid input. When the metabolism in our gut slows down, our capacity to break down and process foods properly also diminishes. Therefore, keep in mind some of those foods that have a higher probability of being a problem for people with Hashimoto's. But from there, really pay attention to what works well for you. I like to recommend that my patients keep a food journal and not only write down what they're eating, but also keep track of their symptoms on the day to day. Remember, not all of our reactions to food are going to manifest as digestive symptoms. Because of the systemic nature of our immune system and thyroid activity, food reactions could cause everything from bloating to brain fog, joint pain to skin reactions, and weight gain to changes in bowel movements. So if we see any changes in symptoms or functions, note it and then try to establish some patterns and trends. The second thing that you want to do when it comes to your Hashimoto's diet is figure out what fuels your body the best. So yes, certain types of foods can cause reactions. And generally speaking, that's due to particular proteins found in those foods that our body doesn't break down and tolerate. However, these proteins are more like identifying proteins, or maybe a good way to think about it is like a fingerprint. When it comes into our system, our gut and our immune system look at that food, identify what it is, and then make the decision whether they want to react or not. However, aside from the identification, especially if it's a food that your body deems as safe and appropriate, we also want to understand what macronutrients are contained within that food. Macronutrients include protein, carbohydrates, and fat, and different combinations of macronutrients are going to have different metabolic consequences. Carbohydrates tend to be burned a little bit quicker, and fats and proteins take a little bit more time. But that doesn't make one better than the other, they're just different. And finding what combination works best for you is going to be very helpful as you start to build your nutrition plan. I like to recommend that my patients with Hashimoto's make protein a priority. And it's very common for me to give them a framework of getting at least 100 grams of protein per day, if not up to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or even on the higher end, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I also like to make sure that people are getting at least 30% of their calories from healthy fats, because some studies have suggested that when we get under that mark, it could be harmful to our hormonal health. But after we get our protein right and hit that minimum fat requirement, we can turn up or down any of these macronutrients like a volume knob and see what feels the best. Usually I find that a good starting point for healthy macronutrient intake looks like improved energy, better sleep, and also a reduction in our hunger and cravings. I've said it before, it's okay to be hungry, but it's not okay for our system to be totally starving to the point where it starts to increase some of our symptoms and change our function. So think of macronutrients and a solid fuel intake as being very stabilizing to our system. Once you have some of these foundations in place, you're going to want to work to progress forward by taking different aspects that work the best for you and trying to leverage them. If something isn't working, even if it fits under your current diet paradigm, don't be afraid to throw that out. And instead, continue to stack positive responses as you work towards the future. Remember, Hashimoto's itself is complicated, and the way that it involves all these other systems in our body only adds to that complexity. When these things start to feed on each other in a negative manner, we want to be able to adapt our nutrition. That way it can fit what you need and provide you with the progress that you deserve. But I hope that this video gave you a new perspective on the way you want to approach Hashimoto's diets, and hopefully it helped you to understand that you can still use these diets, but you also want to have the confidence to be able to flex and change things as you need. Sometimes stepping outside of that paradigm can be a little bit scary, but changing that mindset will allow you to become more dynamic and allow you to have the best outcomes possible. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. And I'd also love it if you could share what sort of diet approaches are working best for you and how those have changed over time. If you like today's information but need more help, then I'd encourage you send me an email at contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com and request more information about enrolling in my online course, Natural Hashimoto's Transformation. Enrollment is limited, but during the 8 modules that I'll teach live, my goal is to help women with Hashimoto's who aren't getting help from their doctor, want to make changes, and don't know where to start, go from feeling frustrated, tired, and exhausted, and trying to figure it out all on their own, to making nutritional, lifestyle, and supplemental choices with confidence. That way they can feel vibrant, strong, and love their lives again. So if that's something that sounds of interest to you, don't hesitate to reach out and send me a message. If you want to keep learning on your own, then make sure to watch some of the other videos and playlists right here on my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook for daily tips, information, and strategies. And you can download either one of my free downloads, which are listed in the description box below. But that's a wrap on this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. I love you guys, and I hope you're continuing to do well. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. But my name is Dr. Bodle. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one.